Right, and what I get from that too, again, is not just that, I mean, it's, so I can look back to times when, let's say for instance, I, went dead broke, lost my house, lost my family, and how I recovered from that. And I can talk about how this was ultimately a positive thing for me, even though it felt really, really horrible at the time. But even now, it's forced me to put myself into a daily practice of healthy living that I continue to this day so that I don't waste these quantum moments. They last forever for me. And I see how you did that in, I can see clearly now. It wasn't like these were distinct moments that then slipped away. You kept them with you and built upon them and kept transforming your life in this positive way. Even at the age of 65, even at the age of 70, and even right now, you're going to be starting a new book.
I've already started it. Rumi said this very wonderful line. He said, "Sell your cleverness and purchase bewilderment." Get into a state of awe, like what you just told me about losing your family and those down moments in your life. Those things, they really saved your life. If they hadn't come along, the likelihood is that you wouldn't have met the person that you've now married to. You wouldn't have been able to do the kind of work that you're doing and feel so much so much energy and inspiration in being able to put this out to you put out messages to 500,000 people on a regular basis about being able to overcome difficulties and so on. The likelihood is that you would have just gone on, probably gotten yourself to be overweight, perhaps gotten addicted to something, and who knows, had an accident or died or whatever. So that I always said that there's three ways to enlightenment. Okay. The first way to enlightenment is, I call it enlightenment through suffering. Enlightenment through suffering is you go through things that, like perhaps the thing that happened to you, or addictions, which I've had in my life. You're talking to someone who's 25 years without any alcohol in his body, based on just a quantum moment, not because I was an alcoholic, but because of what a great teacher had told me in India, that if you want to reach your full potential, you came here with big dharma, he told me, then you'll have to do it with sobriety, total sobriety. And the next day I just gave it up. I had been drinking, every day, not a lot, was never drunk in my life, but just walked away from it in that moment because I just didn't want to destroy another brain cell, and be able to use it through the rest of my life. So enlightenment through suffering is you go through these experiences, and then 10 years or so go by, and then you look back and you say, oh my God, now I know why I had to have that, why that divorce, why that fire took place, why that accident, why that, bankruptcy, whatever it might be. And you begin to look at it, and almost everybody who goes through one of these things 10 years later will say, it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And this is people who are living their lives in wheelchairs and so on, who will look back and say, oh my God, that accident, or when that happened, I can now see how it really turned my life into a whole new place, even though I'm in a wheelchair. The second way to enlightenment is called enlightenment through being in the present moment. So that when these events come along and they take place, an illness comes along, an accident happens, a bankruptcy shows up, a fire destroys things and so on. Instead of being in a state of, okay, now I got to go through 10 years of suffering, in this moment I can say, what's in it for me? I can step back and I can look at this and say, oh my God, and get down on your knees and be in a state of gratitude for the pain that you're experiencing right now, for the depression, for the anxiety, for the stress, whatever it might be, saying thank you, and I'm listening, and whatever it is that I have to learn from this, I'll accept. That's the second way to enlightenment. Third way to enlightenment, as I call it, enlightenment by getting out in front. That is, now you get to such a place that your intuition is so polished and so firm, and you have such a trust in your connection to your source that you know that, as it says in the Course in Miracles, if you knew who walked beside you at all times on this path that you have chosen, you could never experience fear or doubt again. You know you've got a senior partner. You know that there's an energy of some kind, the same energy that is moving the planets and opening the roses in the morning is also opening your own heart. As Rumi once said, what was said to the rose that made it open was said to me here in my chest. when I found you, and he was speaking about God. There is an invisible intelligence that is keeping the planets in alignment, that is opening all of the flowers every morning, that is growing your fingernails. It's the same intelligence. It's called the Tao, or the divine mind, or God, or spirit. It doesn't matter what you call it. The Tao that can be named is not the Tao. The moment that you try to name it, the reason that Lao Tzu says that is because the moment you try to name it, you go from oneness to two-ness. Now you got the thing and the name that you have for it, and that's the nature of the physical domain. But your intuition gets so so honed that you can get out in front of it and you can anticipate. And now you can do this. Like, for example, you're in a relationship with someone, and you know that if you say this particular thing, and then she's going to react back to this, and then if I say it this way, then she's going to be mad, and then what's going to happen is we're not going to talk to each other for a couple of days. We're going to go through a freeze out, and on. So when you get to this higher level that I'm talking about, you can anticipate all of that in a nanosecond, and you can just stop yourself, and instead of saying the thing that's going to create this this difficulty in your relationship, instead of doing that, you say, honey, that's a good point. I'll think about that. And you suspend your ego and you let it go, and you don't any longer need to be right, because when you have a choice to be right or to be kind, you just pick kind. And that's just one example. Then you start anticipating all kinds of things coming your way. And as you do that, then you take action on it. I would suggest that you probably did that in order to get this interview that we're doing right now.
Absolutely, Wayne. And what's really interesting in what you just said is you gave these 3 methods for enlightenment, and then rather than talk about some esoteric benefit of enlightenment, the benefits are right here in real life right now. You went right into talking about relationships and arguments, and I think that's what resonates so well right now, because people realize the corporate world they grew up in, the educational system they grew up in, everything they've been promised in their childhood and early adulthood might not work out anymore the way they thought or the way they have been told. But it's through this type of enlightenment thinking and this type of thinking about, well, what else is going on in the world that I might not understand? I think this resonates on a very practical level as well. And that's what you speak so clearly about in all of your books, but really also in this latest book. You can see clearly now.